morning, everyone. We are talking about how terminally ill patients should have the right to physician-assisted suicide. And my opponents here don't have enough adequate evidence to support this reason on why people should be allowed to kill themselves. A reason why this wouldn't work is that most of the diagnosis of terminally ill patients are wrong, or they're improper, they're misdiagnosed. So, like if I misdiagnosed and I was going to die in 6 months, but if I wasn't going to die in 6 months and then I want to end my life just because I'm going to die, but I could actually be living longer. Misdiagnosis by physicians is a serious and common occurrence in the health industry. The repercussions of misdiagnosis can damage a patient's health and cost money or even a life. The prevalence of misdiagnosis is shocking, says Kaiser Health News. An estimated 10% to 20% of cases are misdiagnosed, which exceeds drug errors and surgery on the wrong patient or body part, both of which receive considerably more attention. One report found that 28% of 583 diagnostic mistakes were life-threatening or had resulted in death or permanent disability. So, if you're going to be misdiagnosed, that could lead to your death, and there's no way to be able to tell that you were going to die in 6 months. There's no way to put a timeline on that. Another study estimated that fatal diagnostic errors in U.S. intensive care units equal the number of breast cancer deaths each year, which is 40,500. According to doctors, misdiagnosis has occurred for quite some time. As far back as 1991, Harvard University found that misdiagnosis accounted for 14% of all adverse events, and that 75% of these errors involved negligence. The reality is that fixing diagnostic errors will be challenging, given that arriving upon medical diagnosis is a complicated and multifaceted procedure. Many doctors are unaware that they even misdiagnose patients, and they say that they see it happen once a month. While diagnostic errors are the leading cause of malpractice litigation, the vast majority of errors do not result in legal action. A survey found that 96% of physicians felt that diagnostic errors are preventable, while half said they encountered at least one per month. Just like I said, the solution to this would be palliative care. Good palliative care can, if you're going to die in 6 months, good palliative care can do everything they can to make you feel comfortable and to take away your pain, and to make sure that you do have some dignity when you die, and they can make that pain go away. And also, another way we can do this is if we don't give PAS as an option, and if we don't make PAS legal, which PAS is physician-assisted suicide, when I just say PAS. So, and then we can also find new diagnoses or new advancements to medical technology, and maybe we can even live longer than 6 months, but we would never know if physician-assisted suicide is an option. Giving terminally ill patients the right to physician-assisted suicide can lead down a very slippery slope. Based on the idea that healthcare service, and by extension the government, starts killing its own citizens, a line is crossed that should never have been crossed, and a dangerous precedent has been set. The concern is that a society that allows voluntary to physician-assisted suicide will gradually change its attitudes to include non-voluntary and then involuntary euthanasia. These consequences will lead to very ill people who need constant care, or people with severe disabilities that may feel pressured to request physician-assisted suicide because they don't want to be a burden to their family. And if we let terminally ill patients have this right, it will force the elderly, poor, and minorities to feel like they must. According to Robert Beezer, judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in 1996, in an opinion in Compassion in Dying versus Washington, he says that constitutional protection for a right to assisted suicide might spawn pressure on the elderly and infirm, but still happily alive to die and get out of the way. Also at risk are the poor minorities who have been shown to suffer more pain than other groups. Further, like the elderly and infirm, they, as well as the handicapped, are at risk of being unwanted and subjected to pressure to choose physician-assisted suicide rather than continued treatment. The poor, the elderly, and the disabled, and the minorities are all at risk from undue pressure to commit physician-assisted suicide, either through direct pressure or through inadequate treatment of their pain and suffering. If we adapt to the Oregon model that my opponents have proposed, physician-assisted suicide would be a freedom that many could be pressured into, such as everything else we do. According to Diane Coleman, founder and president of Not Dead Yet, stated in her following article, Assisted Suicide Disability, that assisted suicide has been marketed to the American public as a step toward increasing individual freedom. But choice is an empty slogan in a world full of pressures on people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. Now is not the time to establish a public policy securing the profits of healthcare system that abandons those most in need and would bury the evidence of their crime. The slippery slope goes hand in hand with the ethical issues with doctors. If the medical ethics argument states that legalizing physician-assisted suicide would violate one of the most important medical ethics, which in the words of the International Code of Medical Ethics is, a doctor must always bear in mind the obligation of preserving human life from conception. Asking doctors to abandon their obligation to preserve human life could damage the doctor-patient relationship, causing death on a regular basis, could become a routine administrative task for doctors, leading to a lack of compassion when dealing with elderly, disabled, or terminally ill people. So people will be forced to do physician-assisted suicide, and the trust between doctors will be broken and patients, because it will just be so easily done to just have physician-assisted suicide if you're terminally ill. Like, that would just be the solution. And so we shouldn't adopt the Oregon model, because if we do, we need to realize that Oregon has become the model for how assisted suicide is supposed to work. But for those who dig beneath the sloganeering and the feel-good propaganda, it becomes clear that legalizing assisted suicide leads to abandonment, bad medical practice, and a disregard for the importance of patients' lives. Thank you.